I want to talk today about a topic that can be of a sensitive nature to some people. And I thought rather than just ignore it, I wanted to pull it out into the light so we can have a frank and open discussion about it. Am I an expat or an immigrant? Now, that's a distinction that for me personally, I don't really think about. However, other people do. And the labels we call ourselves and the labels that are put upon us by other people can really be a trigger. So I want to talk today a little bit about the definitions of expat and immigrant, why I tend to refer to myself as an expat on this channel. Hi, my name is Maureen. In 2024, I moved to Bulgaria with my husband Jeremy and our two tuxedo cats, Damon and Pythias, and I make videos for, here's that word, expats and wannabe expats that share our experiences here in Bulgaria. Hi, welcome back to the channel. Fall has arrived in Bulgaria. We are into sweater weather. The cats are they're over here. Here, I'll show you a little video of what they're doing at the moment. They are sitting in their beds, fast asleep for the most part, because they are just cocooning because it's gotten chilly outside. So we've managed to survive. Let's see, we've survived our first winter, spring, summer, which was the hardest for me because I'm not a hot weather lover. And now we're experiencing a fall, which has been beautiful here. So we've managed to survive all 4 seasons. Okay, let's talk about this. If you take all the emotion out of the words, just for purposes of this conversation for the next 2 minutes, if you take the emotion out of the words, when you look up the definitions of both expat and immigrant, they really don't differ a whole lot. What I read, and I'm going to read it to you here, what I read is that an immigrant is a person who comes to live in a new country permanently. Okay, that makes me an immigrant. An expat is a person who lives outside of their native country. That makes me an expat. And I've seen other sources kind of delve into some nitty gritty, and they say it has to do with how long you're out of your home country. Are you just out of your country temporarily or permanently? In one case, you're an expat. In one case, you're an immigrant. I'm not going to split hairs on that. When you look at the actual definitions, an expat is one that lives outside of their home country. An immigrant is a person who has chosen another country to live in. And if it's length of stay that designates what we are, I don't want to apply those terms to Jeremy and me either, because we don't know how long we're going to be in Bulgaria. We plan to stay, I don't know, permanently, but definitely for the long run. But let's face it, if you've watched my videos, you know I move around a lot. So does that make us here temporarily or permanently? Okay, so there's our technical Webster's definitions of the word. But let's get real. It's not the technical book definitions of those 2 words that really matter. It's the hidden meaning that some people infuse into those words. When the reality is that many people who apply the word immigrant to explain somebody or as a label on somebody, they're mostly talking about the person who has left their country because of poverty or persecution, makes an arduous journey, usually to the US, and when they get to the border, they just pray that the current administration's policies are not going to kick them back out again. That's the kind of informal definition of what we think of when we hear the word immigrant. And I'm from America. That's the scenario that comes to me the most. I'm sure in Europe, it's got to do with other people from other countries coming across their borders. But either way, I can see why some people don't think of the word immigrant as a flattering connotation. Whereas the expat is the privileged white lady that can afford to pack up her husband and 2 kids and basically go to any country in the world where she chooses to live. Obviously, the word expat smacks of elitism to at least a handful of people, because I get at least maybe 2 to 3 comments, sometimes more, on each video. It depends on the content. But I don't think I've had a video yet where somebody has not made it a point to say, why do you call yourself an expat? when you're really an immigrant, that's how the nice people say it. And then there's other people who don't put it quite as mildly as that. So let me explain my take on it, why I refer to myself as an expat mostly. I'll talk to you about the circumstances in which I don't call myself an expat, and maybe it will give folks some clarity. The first reason I call myself an expat on this channel is based on, let's call it, marketing logistics. To whom is my channel targeted? It is targeted toward people, Americans for the most part, who want to leave the United States and move to another country. That is my target audience. Therefore, how are they going to find me in the YouTube algorithm? They're going to type in something like, how do you be an American expat? How do I become an expat in Bulgaria? They might type in, how do I move abroad? But when it comes to the noun that describes them, because that is the term that we typically use in the US when someone leaves the United States, it's expat. That's what they're going to type into the search engine. That's what's going to allow YouTube the ability to provide them with accurate results. If somebody goes into the YouTube search box and they type in American immigrant, that's not going to be my target audience. That's going to be a whole different thing. So for marketing purposes, to get my content in front of people who most benefit from it, I have to use the word American expat. Like it or not, YouTube rewards the use of the word expat. Now, Bulgarians are going to consider me an immigrant. I don't have a problem with that. But here's the thing. While I welcome everyone to the channel, and I greatly appreciate when Bulgarians, and just anybody who's familiar with the Bulgarian culture, which by default tends to be Bulgarians, and I love it when they come on in the comments and they either answer a question that I put on the video or they volunteer some information. I have learned so many snippets of Bulgarian culture, Bulgarian language, Bulgarian history from generous Bulgarian people who come on my channel and impart that wisdom not only to me, but to anyone else who reads the comments. I think that's wonderful. You're always welcome, and I don't want to dissuade anyone from doing that. I even get comments in Bulgarian. I have to translate them, but I appreciate them, and I'll take them in whatever language you want to post in. However, the reality is Bulgarians are not my target audience. Bulgarians don't need to know what it's like to live in Bulgaria as an American, because you guys already live here, so you don't need my wisdom on that. So I just want to underscore, and I don't want to drive anybody away. You are all welcome. I'm grateful for your input. However, my target audience, the core of who I direct my content to, is going to be Americans that want to leave the United States. Now, the flip side is whenever I am talking to Bulgarians, I don't mean on the channel, I mean when I'm out in my daily life, I refer to myself as an immigrant. I am a Bulgarian immigrant, and I don't have a problem with that word. To my fellow Bulgarians, I am definitely an immigrant, no different than any other immigrant that goes to any other country, and that is the word I use when I'm talking to Bulgarians. However, to my fellow Americans, I am an expat. And so when I'm talking to Americans, as I am in this channel, I refer to myself as an expat. My usage of the word expat is not meant to do the following. It's not designed to foster an us versus them mentality. Look, here's the reality. I am never going to fully assimilate into Bulgarian culture. I want to, and I'll talk about that here in a minute, but I look American. I dress like an American. I sure as heck talk like an American, at least an American from the northeastern part of the country. So it's not to set myself apart from Bulgarians. That's just way deeper than my brain goes on this topic. We're trying to assimilate into the culture. We love hearing about just everything, the traditions. I mean, Bulgaria has such a much longer history than the United States. There's hearing about all the different elements between the Ottomans and the Romans and all the other influences that Bulgaria has experienced. We love hearing about that stuff. We want to assimilate into the culture. I don't call myself an expat to put distance between myself and Bulgarians. Do I acknowledge that as a semi-retired American person with United States Social Security and income from my United States-based business, coupled with the fact that I only have Bulgarian expenses, makes me seem affluent to a lot of people? Yeah, I can see that people would think that. We're certainly not rich, but it's very much true that our income coupled with our expenses in Eastern Europe allows us to live more comfortably than perhaps a lot of folks who are watching this channel, both in Bulgaria and in the United States. The use of the word expat is also not an excuse for not learning the language. The other comment I get once or twice on every video, which quite frankly is a drop in the bucket compared to all of the positive comments. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of comments that are positive, but then there's always a handful sprinkled in there of people with some negativity to share. And one of them is, you have to learn the language. Well, my guess is you haven't watched every video from beginning to end, because I have referred several times in several videos that I am indeed learning the language. I study every day. However, this channel, I guarantee you, will never be in Bulgarian. You can leave comments in Bulgarian. That's perfectly fine. I'll just run them through the translator and I'll probably respond in English. This channel is not designed to disseminate information in Bulgarian. It is designed to disseminate information to Americans that want to leave their home country and come either to Bulgaria or somewhere else. I do not use the word expat because I have some hidden agenda that the American way is better. Now, there may be some people that think that. I can't speak for all expats / immigrants. I can only speak for my own motivation. We did not come to Bulgaria to Americanize it. That doesn't make any sense to us. We came to embrace the culture. We came for an adventure. Yes, we came for a lower cost of living as well, but we certainly did not come here to bring our American ways. Now, are there times when I experience something and think, whoa, this is so different than the way it's done in the US? Well, yeah, I wouldn't be human if that didn't happen. I might sometimes express a longing for how efficient things are in the United States. You've heard me talk about that before. But we don't live in the United States. We chose to be here. So I'm not using the word expat because I think the American way is the best way of doing things. And so I'm going to come in as this knowledgeable expat lady and tell the Bulgarians how it really should be done. Could not be further from the truth. And it's not because I think the word expat sounds better than immigrant. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I don't really attach significance to the two words. To me, they mean basically one and the same, but that doesn't mean other people don't attach emotional significance to those words, which is why I wanted to bring this subject to the light. For me, very simply, I am an American expat, period. I am a Bulgarian immigrant. Equally true. Those statements carry the same amount of weight as far as I am concerned. At the end of the day, the significance we attach to words matters. So whether you call yourself an immigrant, an expat, or just somebody building a life abroad, the bottom line is this: whichever term you choose to apply, whether you're an expat or an immigrant, for the most part, we come to a new country for a better life. Different motivations sometimes, but the underlying core is that we've all come to a new country for a better life. And for me, it's all about respect, courtesy, and the willingness to adapt. To me, the label isn't so important. What matters to me is how we show up in the new countries that we've chosen to call home. Anyway, that's my take on it. This week's video is shorter than usual. I just didn't want to keep going without addressing the elephant in the room. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, as long as they are not toxic or bullying or mean or swearing. I will keep them up and allow them to stay. I know it is a topic that generates a lot of discussion, and I'm always interested to hear what people think about this particular subject. Please remember to like and subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notified. Next week's video will be more of my typical content where I'm talking about our experiences here in Bulgaria, but I just wanted to take some time to address that this week. Everyone have a good week, and I'll see you next time.